Good afternoon. We'd like to begin our meeting. Welcome to our special meeting for Thursday, February the 10th, 2011. If we could have the roll call.
Commissioners Bennett, Patrick,
Here.
Rotfogel,
Here.
Sharkey is absent, President Khan.
Here. The next item.
Report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for the February 10th, 2011 meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall on Friday, February 4th, 2011. Item 2, introductions and presentations. At A, introduction of Nune Sogomonian, Community Services Specialist, Therapeutic Recreation.
President Khan and members of the Commission, I'd like to introduce Walter Alvarez, who is our Community Services Manager. One of his responsibilities is the Club Maple program.
Good afternoon, President Khan, members of the Commission, department staff. My name is Walter Alvarez. I'm the program supervisor for the therapeutic recreation programs. And I'm here to say with great pleasure and I'd like to congratulate Nune Sogomonian to the full-time community services specialist position for the therapeutic recreation program. Nune, if Nune could come up at this time. And I'd just like to say a few words about Nune. Nune's been with the city since 2004. She's been an hourly employee, working various programs in our department. She's worked in the youth programs. She started her way as a volunteer, actually, for our department, and has worked in the youth recreation programs. She's worked in the youth and family services program, the homeless prevention program, as well as the senior program. I mean, she's done it all. She's been a, tradesperson across the board for our department, and it's with great honor that I say, if we could give her a congratulatory, clap here. Many wonderful accomplishments along the way. Nune's a graduate from Cal State University Northridge, and she is currently working on her master's in sociology, both her BA degree as well as her master's degree. So with that, I'd like to introduce Nune. Maybe she'll like to say a few words.
Good afternoon, everybody. I just want to say that it has been a pleasure working with the city, and I'm so proud and honored to be part of the city and to be continuing to be working with such a wonderful organization, especially with the therapeutic recreation program. It's a wonderful organization for individuals with disabilities to come together and, see everything in that program, socialization, recreation, and I'm really honored to be working with that population. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Item 2B, presentation by Catholic Charities of Los Angeles.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, Commissioners, staff. My name is Juan Rodriguez. I'm a program coordinator for Catholic Charities, our Glendale Community Center. And thank you for the privilege and honor to be here this afternoon to share with you a little bit of what we do at the Glendale Community Center. We have a brief DVD that will give you an overview of the things that we do at the center. So if you, turn your attention to the screen. Charities creates a culture based on compassion and hope. Catholic Charities USA was founded in 1910 on the campus of Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. as the National Conference of Catholic Charities to promote the creation of diocesan Catholic Charities Bureaus, to encourage professional social work practice, to bring a sense of solidarity among those in charitable ministries, and to be the attorney for the poor. In its almost
Leadership and Development in Education, which is a state-funded preschool program. We have 5 programs in the San Fernando Valley, 1 in Maywood, in Glendale, and it's half-day programs that we offer. They're 3-hour sessions, 8 to 11 in the morning and 12 to 3 in the afternoon. And it's to prepare the children for kindergarten, get them ready for the kindergarten, because now that the demands of kindergarten are stronger, they need to be ready to read and everything like that. So we're A, teaching them English, and B, getting them ready to know their letters, their academic work, letters, numbers, shapes, colors, and all of that. And we do it through our high scope curriculum, which is giving them lots of choices. We bring real materials in that they choose.
So briefly, that is what we're all about. Unfortunately, the last program, the pre-K program, is no longer at our center, at this center. It's only available in our Canoga Park site. But we would like for you, if you can, come visit us, and we can show you more in depth the things that we do there. I think you'll find it very interesting, and you can see the commitment by the people who are there. Specifically our volunteers. Not more than an hour ago, we honored our 35 volunteers that help out at the center. And without our volunteers, we would not be able to do the work that we do for the community, for the city of Glendale. I'd like to just share with you one thing briefly as an example of the things that happen at our center. About a year ago, we had a young lady and her daughter come to our door. They were living in their car. And what had happened was that her husband had died of cancer. But they had spent all of their money to try to save the gentleman, and it all went into the hospital and all the medical bills. So they were forced to live out in their car. When she came into our center, my coworker Laura Young was able to provide for her a place to live, and now she is gainfully employed and has a place to live. So this is just a brief example of the things that we do. And we thank you for the opportunity to be here and the opportunity to work for the city to work with the city of Glendale. So thank you very much. Any questions?
Questions or comments anybody had? I did. If
Yes,
someone
sir.
wanted to contact you, what's your contact information?
I can give it to you, but my phone number is 818-409-3080. We are at 4322 San Fernando Road. We're right between Los Feliz and Chevy Chase.
Oh.
All righty?
You're close to Path Achieve then.
Yes, we are, right around the corner.
Yeah, do you ever work?
All the time.
Oh, really?
We provide the people who use Path Achieve with vouchers, because we also have now a thrift store at our center. So if anybody needs clothes, we can provide them with a voucher to get clothes for, let's say, for a job interview or for whatever they may need.
Oh.
All righty?
Well, thank you for doing what you're doing, and thank you for coming here today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Item 3, Commission Staff Comments.
Just glad to be back in town, and looking forward to the Winter Wonderland tomorrow, or this Saturday.
The only comment or question I had was I saw in the newspaper that it looked like we knew that the parks funding in the future was going to be very challenging. And so that's not my question. You guys had already talked to us about that and made us aware of that. The question that I have now is our ongoing projects, the projects that are under construction, either just starting out or just finishing up. Are we in jeopardy in any way for our funding for any of those projects? I'm not sure who I'm going to look to for that.
Yes, President Khan, as it relates to our grant portfolio, which was a report that we made to the council 2 weeks ago, at which time we outlined all of the projects that are currently being funded under our current portfolio, which is $13 million, which is a pretty robust portfolio. To my knowledge, all that funding is secured, and we will be able to use all of that funding to complete the projects that we've begun. What happens beyond that is another question. Mark or Dave, did you guys want to expand on that?
You might also comment possibly on if there's an overrun, what might happen.
Sure. Commission Chairman Khan, we have experienced in the past where the state has put a freeze on grant funds where the contracts had not been entered into. So that's always a possibility from the state, but otherwise our projects are underway, our contracts are let, and we anticipate no issues. However, that's one of those things where the state begins to issue IOUs, those won't be well received by the contractors. Sure. So I don't think that would happen for us, but one never knows.
Commissioner Bennett mentioned something about overruns. I know we have contingencies.
We don't have overruns in parks. That's Public Works.
Okay.
We're always on budget, on schedule.
Actually, under budget and ahead of schedule.
Yes, sir. That's true.
That's right. Okay.
We would have to look for additional funding sources internally and shift funding around to address that.
So none of our projects are, because I always brag to everybody about how much we have under construction and how much we're doing and all that other good stuff. So none of that is in jeopardy.
No. I mean, certainly never say never, but as far as we know, it's not. Mark is kind of our guru on state funding. He's probably got some insights.
Yes, President Khan, members of the Commission, I'm Mark Sturdivant, Senior Analyst for the Department. What Jess and Dave have indicated to you is correct. All of our grant-funded projects, we've received no indication from the state that there will be any loss of those funds. In fact, we continue to make payment requests and receive checks back from the state on a regular basis, and I anticipate that continuing till this group of projects is completed. What we're starting to see, and I actually just received an email prior to coming up to Chambers from the state's Housing and Community Development Department, because we also monitor those grants as well, because there are some grants that tie low-income housing to parks funding, is that they just announced they will not be establishing their next round of funding. They're putting a hold on that, and I think this is something that's probably come down from the Brown administration. So future funding looks like it's going to be on hold for a while in certain programs, but they went to great lengths in their email to say that all existing funding that is coming from, in this case, Proposition 1C, the housing bond from a few years ago, all of those funds will continue to be in place.
Great. Thank you. Thank all three of you for answering the question. That was Commission. Does staff have any comments?
All right, let's get started. Good afternoon, President Khan, members of the Commission, Laila Bitar, Parks Department. I would like to have the pleasure in announcing that our department received the Award of Achievement from California Parks and Recreation Society, known as CPRS, for our recently completed project, Glendale Heritage Garden. Our department will be recognized in the category of Park Planning and Design in the upcoming CPRS conference in Sacramento in March. And this award, we're very happy, very proud. It is a very prestigious award. It is one of the highest statewide recognition our department can receive. I'd like to share with you some of the criteria that we actually had a very tough competition. This is a very stringent program. You are, unlike other organizations, you're only allowed to submit for an award within 1 year of the completion of the project. Other organizations allow you to keep submitting for the awards. We also had to even present the certificate of completion to prove when we completed this project. We had to compete with cities 100,000 population and up, and with parks up to 12 acres in size. So it was quite a tough competition. Some of the selection criteria I'd like to share with you that the judges evaluated our project with, the planning process, which weighed about 30% of the points for the evaluation. They wanted us to tell them the story of how the project evolved. Everyone likes to hear a story, and we certainly have one with the historic bungalow. The effectiveness of community involvement in the planning and development of the project, how the project meets identified community needs. Then the design effectiveness scored about 40% of the points. And some of the items in design effectiveness, what is special or unique about the project from an architectural perspective? What is unique about the project from an environmental and or community use perspective? And environmental right now is a very big item in evaluation of awards. Operation and maintenance of the project scored about 20%, and they wanted to know if we had any significant alternative or creative operation and maintenance practices. We had efficient use of resources, cost effectiveness of the project, and if we had strengthened in the design, safety, and security of the residents. The last item, they wanted to know if our project supported the mission of parks and recreation. And some of the items on that, if it promoted participation in recreational activities, strengthened community image and sense of place, and in this case, of course, the restoration of the bungalow definitely strengthened that image and sense of place of the community. Strengthening safety and security, promoting health and wellness, fostering human development, increasing cultural unity, and protecting environmental resources. Just a quick note on CPRS. They are about 4,000 members, and they cover 525 parks and recreation agencies in California. And last but not least, I would like to give some credits to the people who share actually the credit of this award. And I'd like to start with our city council members who voted to save that bungalow, because I truly believe that bungalow makes that place special. Our community that gave us a lot of support throughout the process, the commissions, our park commission, and our historic commission were very strongly involved, and certainly the Glendale Historical Society, John Lacasio and Arlene Vidar were very strong supporters of the project. If you'd like, Iris, to maybe roll some of the slides on the garden while we're talking. Also, I think what was very important is our leadership in the department, who supported and continue to support unique and out-of-the-box ideas and vision and high-quality projects. Our ex-director, George Chapchian, was definitely a very strong supporter of this project. And our present acting assistant director, Dave Ahern, you all know his passion for historic architecture and history. And I think this project was very close to heart with him. Our in-house staff, our attorney Mike Grant and George Walteria put a lot of expertise in the project, and our maintenance staff also gave us very valuable feedback. They all share the credit for the award. And finally, last but definitely not least, we had a wonderful group of consultants on this project, and they collaborated beautifully. We had Melinda Taylor of Melinda Taylor and Associates, who designed the garden. Calvin Abbey, also a very strong landscape architect who designed the concept, the original concept, and worked with us with the neighbors in the community. And finally, EPD Design, a group from Pasadena, another very strong landscape architect who helped us throughout the technical and construction phase of the project. So thank everyone for their involvement.
And thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you.
To all of us.
To everyone who's involved.
Can I just make a little suggestion? I would love to see this in the Glendale News Press tomorrow on the front page saying how great this was. My sense, and I've taken several people to Heritage Park, and they said, I've never even heard of this thing. I think we owe it to ourselves to let people know a little bit better what we do, and that hopefully the news press, or if it's not the news press, something that we can get that word out about how cool we are.
Sure.
Good afternoon, members of the Commission, Jeff Weinstein, Park staff. I want to introduce to you a new event coming to Glendale, the Verdugo Mountains 10K Trail Run and Hike. And you see our logo up on the screen at this time. That's our website, www.runtheverdugos.com. And you can see it's going to be on Sunday, May 1st, 2011. And our tagline is, Conquer the mountains in your own backyard, 6.2 miles, 1,735 feet of elevation gain, one Sunday morning you'll never forget. The race will start in Brand Park and follow the Brand Motorway, approximately 6.2 miles. We'll go up 3.5 miles to the benches up at the top. People are familiar with that. Turn around and then come back down. Great views of the LA Basin, the San Fernando Valley, the Pacific Ocean, and the San Gabriel Mountains. We'll have prizes for the first place male and female finisher, awards for the top 3 finishers in each age category, and prizes and awards for the top male and female Glendale finishers. And then raffles at our awards ceremony, T-shirts for all entrants. It's going to be a family event, so we're going to have a small nature hike while families are waiting for their runners to come back. We'll have an expo with different information on healthy living. We'll have crafts for the kids, and it'll just be a great time to spend a Sunday morning in the park. Right now we're looking for sponsors, either to provide funding or products, and we need volunteers. The race will start at 8 in the morning and will be there until noon, so the hikers will have a chance to also compete and finish the event. Fees are right now through February 28th at $30, and then March 1st till April 25th, $35, and then after that at race day it's $40. So it's a great bargain for a great event. Any schools or running clubs that are interested can contact us. We can come up with some discount codes for them. Let's see, what else can we tell you about this race? Registration is open. You can go to our website, runtheverdugos.com, and through active.com. You can register online, or if you want to register by mail or in person, you can print out the registration forms and send those in to our Glendale Civic Auditorium. The race sponsor is the City of Glendale's Community Services and Parks Department, and the race is to benefit the Glendale Parks and Open Space Foundation. So all profits from this will go to the foundation to be used for park projects.
Go ahead.
Are there flyers, or is there something that you can email the commission so that we can get the word out to our friends also? We are currently printing flyers, and we'll get those out to everyone. We had an email blast go out today to 75,000 runners. So we're really just starting to market and publicize the event, and we can use all the help we can get. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your neighbors' friends, I don't know.
Very exciting. Great. Thank you very much. Sure. Go ahead.
President Khan, can you put the logo back up? Let's see. Is it true that you were one of the models, Commissioner President Khan, on this?
Yes, it is.
I'm thinking the one in the center, of course. I was just wondering.
I'm the one in the back that's walking and breathing real hard.
I'm not saying, I'm not judging.
So, great. Thank you, and we'll bring you updates as we get closer to the event.
Great. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, members of Commission, Arbor Day 2011 will take place on Tuesday, March the 1st, 10 a.m. at Casa Adobe de San Rafael Park. Arbor Day It's sponsored by Glendale Beautiful and is managed by Community Service and Parks Department. It presents the community the opportunity to be a part of the planting of trees to beautify the city. If you are interested in donating a tree, you may pick up an application at our administrative office or download an application on the city website. Again, the 2011 Arbor Days will take place on Tuesday, March the 1st, 10 a.m. at Casa Adobe de San Rafael Park. The address is 1330 Dorothy Drive, and if you want more information, you may call our office at 818-548-2000. 818-548-2000. Thank you.
Thank you. What's next?
Item 4, oral communications.
Okay, all the cards that you've given me looks like it's for agenda item 6A2. So I'm assuming that there is no one here for oral communications. Yeah? Yes, I assume correctly.
Next on the agenda is item 5, consent items. 5A, approval of the minutes of the Commission regular meeting held on January 13, 2011.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move that they be approved.
I'll second.
Commissioners Bennett,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Rotfogel,
I'll abstain.
Sharkey is absent. President Khan.
Yes.
Item 6, business agenda. 6A, action items. 6A1, formation of the Art Advisory Committee for the Pacific Community Pool, Griffith Manor Park, and Adult Recreation Center projects. At A, motion appointing 2 Parks, Recreation and Community Services Commissioners to the Art Advisory Committee for the Pacific Community Pool, Griffith Manor Park, and Adult Recreation Center projects.
President Khan, Commissioners, my name is Ripsime Morashan, and I'm the Cultural Affairs Coordinator. As I stated in my report, Community Services and Parks Department has created several new opportunities for public art projects in the city. One of them is the Pacific Community Pool and Griffith Manor Park and Adult Recreation Center. Currently, we are collecting a lot of information to prepare the RFQ, call to artists, to send out. And we would like to have the public art element integrated in the beginning stage of the construction process. Although the Adult Recreation Center has been already completed and it's been servicing the community past several months, 6-7 months. As you remember, last time for our Maple Park Public Art Project, we came to you and requested that you appoint one of your members to the Art Advisory Committee. We are here to ask you to do the same thing for all 3 other projects that I just mentioned it. By observing from our past experience, we assume the time commitment for each project. Every advisory member probably will need to spend about 7 to 8 hours for your consideration. That's about it. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer it.
You guys have questions? I thought
I'm part of the...
Yes, currently we still have the Maple Park Public Art Project.
Okay, so Commissioner Bennett was appointed, I thought you were permanently appointed, but you're appointed for Maple Park.
Well, permanently appointed for Maple Park. Yes.
I see.
Yeah.
And this is for these other park projects as well. And so this time you're wanting 2 of us.
Yes. And in addition, I apologize for not mentioning it. We will need 2 members of the commission to be appointed to the Art Advisory Committee, and one of them will be a primary member and second one as an alternate.
If I can help out with this, Ripsime and I have been working on it because there was 3 projects, and the time commitment for one had been about 8 hours. We thought 24 hours might be quite a bit of time, so we asked for 2 representatives in the event that one of you can't attend or there's a conflict in terms of scheduling. That will allow you to always have a representative on the committee. So you can, amongst yourselves, decide if it's in your ability to attend all the meetings, or perhaps just one project and the other commissioner do the other. So we thought, let's ask for 2, and then we'll work with you in terms of what best meets your schedule.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Also wanted to know, there will be 2 members then, also I assume, from the Arts Commission?
Only one member was asked to join the advisory committee. I believe there will be a Brown Act
That was where I
issue
was
if we
going.
have 3 commissioners in the committee. And the meetings have to be televised, I was told.
So it will be a Brown Act meeting?
No.
No.
Chairman Khan, Commissioner, the Brown Act would apply if we had 3 members of one commission that could then form a voting body. In this case, you're of separate commissions. You are the Parks Commission, and this was a late-breaking idea, which is a polite way of saying we didn't think of it sooner, or we might have asked for a second representative from the other commission. So we certainly, could provide those opportunities for the other commissions as well. But we thought, let's
start with us.
Let's start with the Parks Commission and move forward.
Okay.
Well, I think, because going back to our experience when we had the the meeting with about the concerts and what we were going to do, that even though it wasn't televised, was still Brown Act noticed because of, and there were only 2 people from this commission and I think 2 from the arts.
Sure.
But I think it still had to be Brown Act noticed.
We'll contact the City Attorney's Office, get clarification, and if that's a requirement, we'll make sure it's done. And we'll let the Commission know.
Perfect. Now, having said all of that, I'm looking to my fellow colleagues to see who are the 2 that this is calling to in terms of participating in this.
I'd be glad to volunteer. I'd even accept.
I can turn my head all day. I really can. Someone else has to speak.
Well, I was hoping that you would want to volunteer, President Khan.
No, that's. I'm hoping someone else that has more skill in this area than myself.
Well, I don't know that I have more skill in this area than yourself, being that you're such a man about town and
thank you.
So involved in the arts. But if needed, I would be happy to serve.
I would be happy to have Steve serve.
Perfect. Okay.
On a platter, right?
Yes.
Or at least parts of them.
Seeing how we have 2 volunteers, 2 willing volunteers, do we need a motion, or what is it we formally need?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Anita.
Oh, I would be happy
I bet you would.
to make the motion that Richard serve as the primary and Steve as the secondary.
I'll second
members
that.
of the art project.
Public art.
I don't mind being his second. So I'll be happy to do that.
Okay, I'll take roll call. Commissioners Bennett?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Rob Fogel?
Yes.
Sharkey is absent. President Khan?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not abstaining.
Next on the agenda, item 6A2, Safe and Healthy Streets Plan. At A, motion to recommend adoption of the proposed Glendale Safe and Healthy Streets Plan by the Glendale City Council.
Okay, before we go to that, what I've been shared with is that we're going to have a presentation from staff, and then we would have the opportunity as commissioners to ask questions, and then we're going to hear from people from the public, and then if we have any follow-up questions we can ask in that manner. So did I get that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so let's get going then. Thanks.
Thank you, President Khan. Commissioners, what we have before you is a recommendation to approve a proposed Glendale Safe and Healthy Streets Plan, which is a planning document and an implementation strategy to make the city safer and friendlier for bicyclists and pedestrians in our community. It's also a means of promoting physical activity and the physical health of our residents. This has very much been a team effort with other departments, as you will learn in the presentation, as well as a collaboration with other entities that share the same goals and objectives. So at this time, I'd like to call up Mark Sturtevant, who is the driving force in our department's liaison to this project for further information and background, and then Mark will introduce Mr. Colin Bogart, who is the project coordinator.
Thank you. President Kahn, members of the Commission, I'm Mark Sturtevant, Senior Analyst for the Community Services and Parks Department. Back in August of 2007, the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health announced a new funding opportunity known as the PLACE Grant Program. And the PLACE program was founded on the belief that the design of our cities influences how much physical activity we get and plays an important role in preventing many chronic conditions such as obesity, heart disease, diabetes, and asthma. And our department actually took the lead in getting Glendale involved with the PLACE Grant program, and we did so in the belief that a city as park poor as we are needed to look outside the box to find ways that would help our residents become healthier through physical activity, including through walking and riding a bike. Staff from our department investigated this funding opportunity, and we recommended a collaboration with the LA County Bicycle Coalition. We convened a meeting with members of the coalition and other interested city departments, including Public Works and at that time our planning department, and we concluded that this collaboration could provide our residents with new opportunities for physical activity and recreation, even though it wasn't going to be in a park. In March of 2008, the Los Angeles County Bicycle Coalition, with the City of Glendale as its municipal partner, was awarded, after a very competitive grant application program, was awarded one of 5 PLACE grants in LA County. Funding from the PLACE grant has allowed us to work with the coalition on the Safe and Healthy Streets Plan. It's a policy document designed to implement existing policies from current planning documents, as well as recommend new policies, all designed to help Glendale become a safer and friendlier place for bicyclists and pedestrians. And the importance of this document to the county is outlined in the letter that I think you have before you from Jean Armbruster, who oversees the PLACE program for the LA County Department of Public Health. In a moment, Colin Bogart, who is our PLACE Grant Coordinator, will make his presentation about the Safe and Healthy Streets Plan, and we will follow that, as President Kahn said, with an opportunity for the Commission to ask questions. In addition to Mr. Bogart, we have staff here from Public Works, from Community Development, from the Police Department, and of course from our own Community Services and Parks Department, all available to answer any questions you might have about the planning document. Then after your questions, we'll take comments from the public, and finally, we will ask you for your final comments and a vote from the Commission. It's our goal that you recommend adoption of this plan by the Glendale City Council. And with that, I would like to introduce the PLACE Grant Coordinator, Colin Bogart, who will make the staff presentation.
President Kahn, Commissioners, good afternoon. As Mark indicated, my name is Colin Bogart. I work for the Los Angeles County Bicycle Coalition. I've been working with the City of Glendale on the PLACE Grant Safe and Healthy Streets project. And I do have a short presentation for you, and we're going to see if I can make it work. There we go. So I want to give a brief overview, and I want to start by talking about how we got to where we are now. As we mentioned, the PLACE Grant, the Safe and Healthy Streets project, is funded by the PLACE program of the LA County Department of Public Health. PLACE Grant, PLACE stands for Policies for Livable, Active Communities and Environments, and it was born out of concerns for public health that can be addressed through things such as daily walking and biking, as Mark indicated. And the idea is to create policies and a built-in environment that will support walking and biking. I'd like to start with some key statistics that I think influenced the Department of Public Health's decision to fund this project, in particular with respect to Glendale, 17% of adults and 15% of children are obese in Glendale. 46% of adults and 18% of children are overweight in Glendale. Here in Glendale, 40% of adults engage in little to no physical activity on a regular basis, and 66% of adults drive to go on errands less than 1 mile from home. Now, following the award of the Place Grant project that, of course, Mark indicated meant a collaboration between the Los Angeles County Department of Public, or LA County Bicycle Coalition, and the City of Glendale. And I'm having a little bit of trouble with their... Yeah, okay, I'll try the wheel. As Mark indicated, there are 4 departments that have been involved in this project: Community Services and Parks, Community Development, the Police Department, as well as Public Works, which includes 2 divisions of Public Works, Engineering and Traffic and Transportation. This has been a collaborative project right from the get-go, and we consider ourselves the Place Grant team on this project. There are 2 main goals with this project. The first is policy change, which is the Safe and Healthy Streets Plan, which I'll be talking to you about briefly in just a moment, and the physical project, which is what we're calling the Riverdale Maple Neighborhood Greenway, and I'll tell you a little bit about that further on in the presentation. And I'm still having trouble with this. Here we go. So from the very beginning, we started conducting community outreach for this project, which included everything from tabling at events. Would you mind forwarding these for me? To having community events such as the History Ride, the History Walk. We've also participated in the Glendale Montrose Christmas Parade on 2 years running now. We've also participated and helped promote, Bike to Work Day, not only throughout the community, but with the City of Glendale. In the fall of 2009, we held a series of community meetings. We had 5 community meetings in which we asked Glendale residents to come and tell us about their experiences walking and biking. And we recorded that information with the intent of using that feedback in order to formulate the Safe and Healthy Streets Plan. We also conducted other forms of information gathering, including a bicyclist and pedestrian survey, which was conducted online. And we also had consultants perform tasks such as a policy peer review and a review of other data. Now, the first goal is, again, the policy change, and that is the Safe and Healthy Streets Plan. We began work on writing the Safe and Healthy Streets Plan in the summer and fall of 2010. And in the fall of 2010, we released the first public draft of that document. Then we held a series of community meetings in which we collected feedback on the draft plan with the intention of taking that feedback so that we could incorporate it into a revision of that plan. We also requested feedback from city staff. We gave all of the respective departments a copy of the draft plan and asked them to give their feedback to us. And we collected feedback from city staff from roughly September of 2010 until January of 2011. Following the collection of all that feedback, we drafted what is now the 3rd draft of the Safe and Healthy Streets Plan, which is the copy of the plan that you have before you. And then on January 24th of this year, we presented that plan to the Planning Commission and the Transportation and Parking Commission, which ultimately was met with unanimous votes of support from both commissions. And we're also very pleased to see that we enjoyed a significant community support that evening. We had about 10 or 11 community members come and speak at that meeting. So the Safe and Healthy Streets Plan is intended to be a big picture document. It's a broad policy document, and we really designed it so that we would leave details to other documents and programs already underway in the city, namely the Bikeway Master Plan, which is currently being worked on to be updated. Safe Routes to School programs, which the city is working on in collaboration with the Glendale Unified School District, and also the Glendale Downtown Mobility Study, which is currently underway in terms of implementation. The plan is organized according to the 5 E's, and the idea behind the 5 E's is that all 5 need to be implemented together in order to be effective. The first E would be education. An example of that would be Policy 2.1B, in which we recommend education programs through the Parks Department. The next E would be encouragement. An example being Policy 3.1A, to establish city-organized walks and rides. This is a photograph from a history ride that we did last May during Bike Month that we did in partnership not only between the Parks Department and the Bike Coalition, but also the Historical Society here in Glendale. Enforcement. Example of that would be Policy 4.1G, establishing a distribution program for lights and helmets instead of citing people for riding without helmets or without lights, establishing a program, for instance, that would distribute lights and helmets to the people who need them. Engineering. An example would be to adopt a complete streets policy. This is a photograph of Santa Monica Boulevard in West Hollywood. Considered a complete street in that it accommodates all users, bicyclists, pedestrians, transit users, as well as motorists. Evaluation, such as Policy 6.4A, in which we recommend conducting regular pedestrian and bicyclist counts in September. This is a photograph from our bike and pedestrian count in 2009 at Mountain and Verdugo. And I can never resist commenting on this photograph that the car fuel is almost $3.50 a gallon and the human fuel is 99 cents a liter. Also included in the policy document is a resources and staffing chapter, such as Policy 7.2A, in which we recommend establishing a pedestrian and bicyclist advisory committee here in the city of Glendale, which incidentally we are recommending that include members from the Planning Commission as well as the Parks Commission to participate in this committee. We also included a chapter on funding sources. We recognize that a good deal of what we're recommending in this policy document needs to be funded, so we endeavored to include a list of potential funding sources for the proposed policies and programs. It's not necessarily a comprehensive list, but it is a good first start. We also included an action plan in the document. It's essentially a timeline that talks about implementing the Safe and Healthy Streets plan. Now, the second goal of the project is what's called the physical project. In this case, it's what we're calling the Riverdale Maple Neighborhood Greenway. And what we have for you here is a map, an overview map of that greenway. It's essentially Riverdale and then Maple going across the city, and then just a little bit of Rock Glen and Lincoln. And the idea behind this greenway is to connect Pacific Park, Maple Park, and Carr Park, and to do as many pedestrian and bicycle improvements that we possibly can along this corridor to encourage people to use this corridor not only for transportation as part of a larger network of bikeways, for example, but also as a way to encourage people to walk, and it connects the parks. Another idea behind this is that this greenway could be the spine of a series of walking loops in South Glendale. Many of we've already seen improvements performed on this corridor. The majority of them, or all of them rather, were part of existing public works capital improvements projects, and we were able to make recommendations along the corridor. For example, there was a new intersection at Maple and Central, which was a big obstacle. We weren't sure how pedestrians were going to get across the street there. Then we found out there was funding coming for an intersection to be placed at that location, and we were able to recommend improvements at that location, which include curb extensions, which bring the curb a little further out into the street. It shortens the crossing distance, which makes the crossing distance shorter for pedestrians and makes it safer. It also included detection for bicyclists at that intersection. So that's one example of the types of improvements that have already been performed on this corridor. There are additional improvements that are being recommended, that will be recommended to the City Council in the coming months for completion later this year. And that's essentially the gist of the physical project, which is really a secondary portion. The main part of what we've been doing really is the Safe and Healthy Streets Plan. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions that you may have.
You guys have questions at this?
I have. Okay. When you were talking about the Greenway,
yes,
you mentioned detection for bicyclists. Mm-hmm. What exactly is that? What do you mean?
What that is when a bicyclist approaches an intersection that is detection. It's basically there's sensors in the street that trip the light. They put special detectors in the street that are more sensitive and capable of detecting a bicycle. Any cyclist who's ridden around a fair amount knows that sometimes when you approach an intersection and there's no other cars in the area and it's an active light, that you don't trip the sensor, and you'll sit there and wait for the light to change forever if you're on the side street as opposed to the main street. So what they did is at that particular intersection, they put in special sensors, and they also put in special markings with signage that show you where to put your bike, so that when you're riding on Maple, for example, and you want to get across Central, you can park your bike on this marking in the street, and it'll trip the light for you.
Wow, that's great. And I think that making the first project in South Glendale really makes a lot of sense. I think that, it's been not only that the whole city is underparked, but that's an area of the city that really has some park issues. Now, the history ride, the history walk, are we planning to do that again this year?
I certainly hope so.
Definite maybe.
Definite maybe, yes.
And and then what about? And I didn't read it in here yet, but
I'm sorry. I should say that the idea behind this plan is to have regular events like that, either a history ride or history walk. There's some other ideas that we've bounced around that we haven't actually done. For example, an ice cream ride. The Bike Coalition did an ice cream ride here in Glendale about 5 or 6 years ago, and it was hugely successful.
Yeah.
We certainly would like to do that kind of thing again. So the idea really is to do themed rides, and usually history theme or food theme are hugely successful. So absolutely, we intend to do more of that.
And my last question gets to the issue of the bike path along the Riverwalk. How is that being impacted by this report?
I would say that the Safe and Healthy Streets Plan and project is parallel to the Riverwalk project. I mean, the Riverwalk project, we didn't initiate that, but we have been participating in that, and I personally have been working closely with the Parks Department in terms of discussing linkages to the Riverwalk project. I know they're also talking about coordinating with the Bike Master Plan update as well in terms of connections to the Riverwalk project. But so I guess the best way to describe it is to say, yeah, they're parallel projects. So we don't really mention the Riverwalk too specifically in the Safe and Healthy Streets Plan, but it's definitely related.
Mr. Bennett?
Two comments. I've quickly sort of read through your 92 or 3 pages, and the bike and health part is terrific. I think it as a bike rider, if we did that, it would just be really good for the city. Second comment is, I saw when you did I was interested to see what the community would say were the issues, because safety issues, and I certainly knew what I thought were the safety issues, and not too surprisingly, they identified the same ones. Speeding black cars through, luxury cars through the city. And I didn't see that there was, and I don't know what you could do about it, but I didn't see too much in here that really addresses what everybody says is the number one safety problem in this whole city. Did I miss something, or did we just give up and say there's nothing we can do about it?
I assume you're talking about either aggressive or distracted
Well, right,
driver.
speeding cars.
Speeding cars.
Yeah, right.
We actually do have some policies in the education section as well as the enforcement section that talk about those issues. Recommendations for things like safety campaigns that are aimed not just at bicyclists and pedestrians, but that are also aimed at motorists. We also made some recommendations in terms of long-range efforts to try to influence the state in terms of what the DMV has in its materials for education, as well as we also talked about in the plan about ideas regarding how speed limits are determined and trying to get local control back to the city as opposed to being at the state level, and that has to do with what's called 85th percentile. So we do have some policies in the document in the enforcement section that address that.
Yeah, I saw them. My sense is, based on my experience with these folks, education is not going to do any good at all. I typically see them speed by, and the best I see is they give me a sign of their IQ, that there's this sort of one figure sort of sticking up.
Sure.
I mean, it seems to me you almost need something like there's a hotline, so when you see one of these cars go by and you can give them their license plate number, or you can take a picture with your cell phone, and if enough of these accumulate, then the police can do something about it. I mean, I guess this is really much more of a citywide safety issue than it is bicycle, but I just saw that was one of your priorities, and everybody seemed to think that was the biggest problem with safety. So I guess I would encourage you to do as much as you can, and it's not clear to me education is going to help with any of that.
Commissioner Bennett, based on what you just said, in terms of this document, is your thought that it needs to go further with that issue or expand on, or what are your thoughts?
Well, I guess I wouldn't say I'm against it because of that. It's just not going to be effective, I don't think, in terms of making Glendale any safer. It's going to be terrific from a bike and health standpoint. I mean, your ideas are really cool. The community activity where you show people how to put together their bikes or adjust their bikes or fix their bikes. I mean, all those ideas are really cool. I just don't think when you do your evaluation, it's just hard to believe that any of the safety is going to be improved by trying to educate any of these folks.
Yes, I just have one question, comment. In reading through this, it seems like most of your focus is on pedestrian and bicycle safety on city streets, but I do notice that you talk about mountain biking and doing a class for novice mountain bikers and that kind of thing. And the one group that I didn't see mentioned in here, which I may have missed but I didn't see, is the hikers in the mountains. And hikers and bicyclists have to share the trails in the mountains the same way that motorists and bicyclists and pedestrians have to share them in the city streets. And having hiked in the Verdugos, there can be some confusion about what's going on the trails between the hikers and the bicyclists, and what's the proper etiquette and that kind of thing. And I would hope that when you actually start getting into the education, that would be part of that novice, and maybe even in the education part, something when you're talking about trails for hikers, so that they're also sharing those trails in a way that's comfortable and nice for both of them, because it believe it or not, it can get crowded up there. And I've been up there, and it's not too bad when you're going uphill because everybody's going slow, but when you're coming downhill, it's kind of like, oh my God, which way do I jump? So I think that's, if you're going to go up into the mountains with the bicyclists, you have to also consider the hikers that are up there.
I agree. I think that's a great point, particularly with when we're talking about mountain bike skills classes, like we mentioned, and that trail etiquette would be a part of that. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, we have opportunities after we hear the public to ask some more questions, so I think I'll wait till then. Thanks.
Okay, certainly.
I have 2 emails, and they're fairly short, so I'm going to start off with that. One is from Cara Sergile. If I didn't say that correctly, I'm sorry. She writes, I am a 10-year resident of the city of Glendale and a mother of 2 little girls. I'm writing to you as a concerned parent and volunteer organizer of our Safe Routes to School program here in Glendale. I wholly support the Safe and Healthy Streets plans. This plan demonstrates a citywide collaborative commitment to improving the health and safety of the residents of Glendale. My family frequently utilizes our beautiful parks in Glendale, and I'm very excited to see the Parks and Recreation Department highlighted as an active component of this plan. Specifically, by educating and encouraging our children to walk and bike safely, we are building a better future for our city. I encourage you to adopt this plan. It's the right thing to do. The second states, my name is Natalie Winiarski, and I've been a Glendale resident since 1969. I'm an avid cyclist, a pedestrian, and a Safe and Healthy Streets volunteer. My concern is how unsafe the streets of Glendale are for walking and bicycling. As a volunteer for the past 2 years, I have heard many residents express their interest in bicycle riding, but they are fearful to ride in the streets. I am in favor of the Safe and Healthy Streets plans and believe we need to create a pedestrian and bicyclist coordinator position to implement the plan with an emphasis on education. This plan affects each and every one of us on many levels and is essential for a thriving community. I encourage you to please adopt this plan, and thank you for your consideration. So, to get to the speaker cards, I will start off with Jean Gleason.
President Kahn, Commissioners, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you on this. I am Gene Gleason. I live in Verdugo Woodlands. I've been a resident of Glendale for 29 years, and I'm an avid bicycle rider. And sometimes as an avid bicycle rider for many years, I've always thought that I'm taking my life in my hands when I'm riding on some of the streets in this town and other towns. It is getting better. I can say that. I'll give you a quick personal note about a ride I did on Sunday through Glendale and over the Hollywood Hills, and then I decided just on the spur of the moment to go down to SC and ride around there and then come back through downtown. Rode on the bike route, the striped path on Glen Oaks Boulevard part of the way. It's not separate, but at least it's marked, and it makes you feel a lot safer when you're riding in these striped bike paths, particularly on wider streets. I tend to try to get on back streets when I can, or if I'm on main streets wide enough that you feel at least comfortable with the cars 4 feet from you instead of 2 as they go by. The only other place all the way down to SC after I came over the Hollywood Hills was on Hoover, south of 9th in Los Angeles. It's wide enough, and they have striped bike paths there too. And then I rode up the river trail coming back. The point I make is that these routes are few and far between. You have to sort of pick and choose where you're going to go and try to find the least dangerous road to ride on. I think this plan is a good beginning for Glendale to set the sort of stage and the policy that will then be implemented with more and more of these bike routes, bike paths, even the sharrows that you are beginning to see on the streets of Glendale and other cities that show that these roadways should be shared. Make you feel a little more comfortable and give people the idea that you can't be too far to the right, otherwise you're going to get slammed by somebody who opens a car door. It is a beginning, but a very important beginning, because I think for 50 years, most of our planning in American cities has been strictly, or 99%, in favor of the automobile. Pedestrians and bicycles and anybody else have been pushed to the side. I think we've finally come to the conclusion that that's not such a healthy way to go, and we're starting to come back the other way. But it is a beginning, a very important beginning. I support it wholeheartedly, and I recommend and urge that you vote for it. Thank you very much.
Questions? Thank you. Susan Jakari.
Hello. the Commission. Thank you for listening to me. Really quickly, education, safety training for school kids. You can't go wrong. I think helping kids help themselves, gain their independence and insight is kind of preventative medicine and helps our city. For encouragement, my children go to Verdugo Woodlands Elementary School, one of the public schools in the GUSD system, and they do the Walk to School Wednesdays, and it's fantastic, and the kids get excited about it, and this is something they do all the time, and they have a monthly raffle to see who wins something, and I love that the school is so behind it, and they encourage kids to be healthy. City-sponsored bike rides and walks, I love it. I will help. I'm on the board for the Open Spaces, Glendale Parks and Open Space Foundation, so I'm already trying as much as I can to help out. At my kids' school in the morning, I do traffic duty, so I've worked with the police department. I've seen all the awful things that can happen and do happen, and they've been amazing and so patient, helping volunteer parents. So, yeah, and enforcement doesn't have to be a bad word. And I think the distribution program for bike lights and helmets is a wonderful and forward-thinking idea. And yeah, basically this plan is preventative medicine. So please, please, please back it up. Thank you.
Like your bike outfit.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Next speaker is Elise Kalfayan.
Good afternoon, President Khan and Commissioners. My name is Elise Kalfayan, and I'm a resident of Glendale. And I have been pleased to work with Colin Bogart and with the City of Glendale on the Safe and Healthy Streets Plan. And the education and enforcement and the encouragement sections of this plan all fit with your mission to offer high-quality recreation programs for the city. Pedestrian and bicycling maps and safety and education programs and those community events involving walks and bicycling are all recommended in this plan, and they've really been great to participate in, so I hope we can do more of them. All of them should improve our health and reduce our city's carbon footprint, and also make the city's recreational opportunities more obvious to more residents. So I support this plan strongly and would like to see it implemented in our city so that more residents and people can walk and bike here safely. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Booth Hartley.
Yes, my name is Booth Hartley. I live on Glorietta in Verdugo Woodlands. I moved there in 1946, and I started bike riding as a child soon after that, and have been actively bike riding in Glendale ever since. So through all those years, I've seen a lot of changes in Glendale. Some of the early changes were not nice for bicycles. Originally, there was a bike route that went from Spar Heights down Verdugo Road behind the Civic Plunge and the Civic Auditorium. And that gradually fell into, it was sort of actively abandoned. When the plunge was taken out and they put the parking lots in, they erected barriers to kind of corral the cars using the parking lots, and it basically made the bike route unusable for bicycles, and pretty soon the signs all disappeared. Next thing that happened that I remember being upset about was the restriping of Cañada Boulevard, which happened a number of years ago, adding left turn lanes at each one of the signals. What this does is force the cars in the right lane over to the curb, crushing any bicycles that happen to be in the way. So I've had to take to riding all the back streets instead of using Cañada Boulevard. Other changes were really not of our control. The population has greatly increased, the traffic has increased, the number of signals, and as Commissioner Bennett says, there are young men with very fancy cars that like to demonstrate their prowess by driving very fast and very dangerously. So about a couple years ago, I started seeing changes which were very encouraging for bicycling in Glendale. I noticed the Sharrows appear on Grandview, and then shortly after that I was riding out Glen Oaks, and like Mr. Gleason, I was delighted to see that finally there was a place for me to ride that is shown to the cars in a recognizable way that the bicycles, the cars understand that the bicycles have a right to be there. The city rides were wonderful. The history ride, in fact, I even got a chance to give a little talk over at Grand Central Airport because I learned how to fly there. And then the parks ride, we went around to a bunch of the smaller parks. I especially enjoyed the Heritage Garden and fell in love with the rope jungle gym there. And I went right home and got my grandson and a couple of his friends and brought him down and watched him play on the jungle gym. It was absolutely marvelous. Probably one of the most significant signs of an improved situation in Glendale was what happened in Verdugo Park a few months ago. They added speed bumps that were really horrendous. So bad that I could not ride over them without fear of breaking my wheel. Colin got a hold of some people in the city, and Mr. George Kapchian took this under his advisement and set in motion the forces that finally wound up redesigning those speed bumps and making them tolerable for bikes at a slow speed, and as a side benefit added the possibility for wheelchairs to once again get to the northern part of the park and people with strollers. So this new thrust is something that's delighting me, and I view this plan as symbolic in that it's a declaration of the city that this is in fact the new thrust, that we want our streets to be safe and healthy for bicycles and pedestrians, and I urge your support.
Thank you. And our last speaker is Scott Lowe.
Hi, my name is Scott Lowe. I'm a resident of South Glendale, and I just wanted to speak very briefly in support of the plan. About 4 years ago, I started losing weight. I used to be about 285 pounds. Wow. I eventually got down to about 190-ish, something like that. And a big part of that was just incorporating exercise into my daily routine. And so I moved to Glendale so I could be closer to my office, and I started biking to work every day. And that was a big part of my weight loss and in maintaining that weight loss for several years. And universally, in speaking to people about my situation and about biking generally, the most common sentiment I hear is that people are afraid to ride their bicycles on the street because of cars. And adding things like bike lanes and amenities that show that the cyclists are welcome is a large step in removing that fear. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, those are all the cards, so I'll close the public portion of this, and I'll go once again to the commissioners if there's any other questions, comments. I do, in fact, have a few. Commissioner Bennett, I think the commission comments that have been raised were very good and should be addressed. I don't think it's something where we just raise them and then we vote on something and it just moves forward. I think in particular, as it relates to the safety issue, I think this report needs to go further. I do. I think that you highlighted that there are some policies and there are some issues, but I think it's such a priority in our community. Safety, pedestrian safety, bicycle safety, but especially pedestrian safety, that I think that needs to be further thrust out, further discussed. Different ideas and policies, I think, need to be implemented as well. One thing. I think the second thing, as it relates to the mountains and the trails, that was brought up as well from Commissioner Patrick, was dead on. Occasionally we get up there, very rarely, but occasionally, same issues. Just being able to navigate down these pathways at times is very difficult. So I think if you can somehow incorporate these items and suggestions in this draft, I think that's going to go a long way. The one gentleman that spoke about it being a good start. And I always think, if it's a good start, how do we make it better? Because it's good to start something. It's even better to go further. And I'm not sure if there are certain ideas that the gentleman had that he wanted to further enhance, but to me it is a good start. This is certainly something that's needed and necessary. Having said that, there's kind of a flip side to this as well, and that's as it relates to traffic and to parking. Because I know when we start putting in these bicycle lanes, we start either narrowing or reducing traffic lanes. And I know that traffic flow in our city is a big issue. And also parking. We're going to need to remove some of the parking. So I guess I'd want to ask Jono if he could come forward and maybe talk a little bit about that and traffic traffic and transportation from your perspective as it relates to this plan and some of the thoughts that you've heard here today.
Chairman Khan and members of the Commission, I'm John Obagdinian, Traffic Transportation Administrator. We, over the years, with our street improvements program, we have attempted to, where possible, put in bicycle lanes that maintaining existing lane widths, standard lane widths, try to keep them at a minimum 11-foot lanes, and then stripe bike lanes that are 5-foot wide bike lanes, very typical on Glen Oaks that was mentioned earlier. The challenge we have is that many of our streets, as you mentioned, we have narrow streets. We have on-street parking, and ideally, if we can get rid of the parking, we can put in nice bicycle lanes on-street, but then those parking spaces are very valuable for adjacent businesses or buildings that are there. So as we go through down this process, parallel to this document, we are working on the bicycle master plan. As part of the bicycle master plan, we're looking at all the major arterials, minor arterials, collector streets to see where we can accommodate bicycle lanes safely. If we cannot accommodate bicycle lanes, actually stripe lanes, we are going to put the Shero designation, which is the pavement marking that you see out there. So some of the Sheros that have gone in is because we couldn't stripe a bicycle lane per se. So it is going to be on a street case-by-case basis once we develop the bikeway master plan, which we've already done almost 60% of the field work. We are going to look and see where it's possible to remove parking and put in a bike lane. We will do that. If it's not possible, by narrowing the lane to a reasonable width, so minimum through lanes, as I said, we're trying to maintain 11-foot lanes, and then stripe a bicycle lane. Maybe in some areas we may only have a striped bicycle lane in one direction and put in Sheros in the other direction because the street width is not enough in order to accommodate bike lanes on both sides. So it will be on a case-by-case study without technically impacting parking to the extent that we can. I can answer any more questions.
Yes, thank you very much.
Sure.
Thanks for that. Any other questions or comments before we make a motion? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
As someone that's committed to some friends to ride down to San Diego with them late this summer, I need to get into bike riding shape. So I've done it before, and so I know what's ahead of me. But with that in mind, I'd like to move this report.
Yeah. Could we add, or could I suggest also that we incorporate the comments that we heard from the fellow commissioners as well?
Absolutely.
You have a second?
Okay. We have a motion and a second.
Commissioners Bennett?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Rottfogel?
Yes.
Sharkey's absent. President Khan?
Yes. Thank you very much. What is next?
Item 6B, reports for information only. 6B1, Citywide Sports Programming Annual Report.
President Khan, members of the Commission, I'd like to introduce Gabrielle Golia, who's our Sports Complex Supervisor, and she will present the Citywide Sports Annual Programming Report.
Good afternoon, President Khan and members of the Commission. I'm here today to talk to you about the Citywide Sports Program. I've come to you in the past and reported on the sports complex operations and the revenue and programs that we offer up there. This report is about all sports programs outside of the sports complex. So this includes 13 citywide fields, tennis courts, programs that we operate at the high schools and the community college, and also our aquatics program. I won't be going in depth into our aquatics program because we do a separate report for you on that at the end of each season. So today I'll just be talking about the other programs. This section of the sports program is actually operated both out of the general fund and the enterprise fund. We have 2 full-time staff and 2 hourly office staff, as well as a number of recreation leaders who help support the programs. The aquatics program also supports a full-time staff, but again, that's a different report for you. Out of this program, we have contract classes. That includes a badminton program, adult volleyball, youth volleyball, tennis, youth soccer, and the youth running classes. All of those are very successful programs, and we found that participation in these is very high. All the programs run every season, and we get enough students to not have to cancel classes on a regular basis. We have a revenue figure for our contract classes. This is a revenue figure from January 1 through December 31st. That actually crosses 2 fiscal years, so it's a little different than the number you'll see a little bit later in our budget report, because that's a fiscal year budget. But this in that exact time frame, we made $58,370 just in contract classes. We also offer facility rentals at 13 of our youth sports fields. Most of these are the baseball fields within parks around the city, and our primary use for these fields is for AYSO and Little League. Those groups get those fields for free during their season, and then during their off-season they can rent the fields if it's available when the other group isn't using it. Both those groups pretty much use those fields year-round. We do have, there's a couple other groups that also use some of our fields, Home Minutemen, Far West United Soccer, and the Levon Ishtoyan Foundation Soccer. Those are all groups that receive the rentals for free at those fields. We did generate in that same January 1 through December 31st calendar year, we generated $51,257 in revenue. Most of that came from films, fall ball, and adult rentals at Stengel Field. Again, the youth groups receive those fields for free during their season of play. We also run the tennis program out of the citywide sports. We have we have many tennis facilities in Glendale. We have 3 that are operated by our tennis vendors. That's Glorietta Tennis Courts, Fremont Tennis Courts, and the Glendale High School Tennis Courts, which we operate outside the school hours. And those are not included in those tennis contract classes. These are separate vendors that run these courts for us. And the last one is our adult basketball. That one is usually reported along with all of our adult sports in the sports complex program, but it is a very successful program that we operate at Pacific Community Center and at Hoover High School. The fiscal impact for the citywide sports, we have, as I said, general fund and enterprise fund. Our general fund is approximately $268,800 per year. That's the operating costs for all of these fields and the staff related to them. And our enterprise fund is approximately $67,236 in expenses, but we bring in over $181,000 in the enterprise fund. So we are running our citywide sports programs in the black, so it's a very successful program. We are anticipating that our contract classes will be $82,000. I know you'll see previously it was around $53,000. We have added some more classes this year. So this fiscal year we are budgeted to bring in some more money in contract classes. Can I answer any questions about our sports programs?
Questions?
Yeah, let me ask you a little about tennis.
Sure.
I sort of have a soft spot in my heart for tennis. We have three venues that are run by private contractors. Mm-hmm. Do we make money from that? Do we make anything from that?
We do bring in some rental revenue, yes. It's approximately $1,000 a month from the 2 tennis courts that are ours, Glorietta and Fremont. That's their rental rates for it, and that money does go to help replace nets and maintain the lights and maintain the surface of the courts.
So it's about a push. Glendale used to have a terrific tennis program. Mm-hmm. They used to have tennis tournaments in which they would get some of the better tennis players around here. Then they privatized, and they've, in my opinion, sort of become like a little social club. Do we have any thoughts on ever trying to bring tennis back to Glendale, or are we just happy with what it's doing?
We've talked about the benefits of bringing the programs back into the sports section. the cost to operate those programs and assign staff to it. It's not just a fiscal cost, but the actual amount of staff time is pretty intensive. So at this point in time, we've really focused on letting the vendors continue running the courts. But we do support the tournaments that they run there. We've actually got a tennis tournament coming up in April that one of our local groups is running, and it's going to be at the Fremont tennis courts. So the city is happy to support that program and encourage people to participate in that tournament. And we do offer the tennis classes, the tennis contract classes at Montrose and Fremont Parks. So they're not tournaments, but we offer lessons for the community at an affordable rate.
We also have a terrific competitor just west of us. I don't know if you've ever seen the Burbank Tennis Club, but I mean, they're world class. So I suspect that might be tough competition for a tournament season. Okay.
It is. And Shoal also. Shoal Tennis Courts up in Shoal Park, the American Golf and Tennis runs that set of tennis courts for themselves. It's a profit. And the city has almost nothing to do with their operations up there. They're a private contract.
You, in your report, it shows a total profit generated in the enterprise fund of $114,285. What do we do with that total profit?
That goes into our 501, the enterprise fund profit every year. It goes to support some programs that I think in the 501, and Jesse might be able to help me a little on this, that it's the overall enterprise for the department.
President Khan, best way to look at it is as a reserve. And it's a reserve that we use to offset other areas where we have overruns. It's also a reserve that we're trying to build up for when we begin to have to subsidize the sports complex operations greater than we what funding source is it that's going to run out in a couple of years?
We have some grant funding. I believe it's Prop A funding, I'm pretty sure, that is going to run out in 2012. And so we pull approximately $175,000 a year from that grant in order to support the sports complex. We're getting very close to supporting it without that grant. This money will also greatly assist that.
Because I'm looking at the general fund expenditures amount and seeing that, if you looked at this quickly and didn't know that we were trying to build up a reserve, it would make sense to just draw down less from the general fund in that amount or credit that amount back to the general fund.
Yes, but we need a reserve.
We need the reserve. Okay.
Getting back.
Yes.
Getting back to the tennis just for a second. Do we have an update on the improvements to Glendale High School? Is that Dave, maybe?
I thought yes.
Sure. President Khan, members of the Commission, we are completed essentially with the State Architects Department, and we're preparing to go to bid and then be under construction during the summer, that project. So that's where we are. We can't do the construction during the school year for our agreement with the school district, so we'll do it during the summer months.
Thank you.
What about funding on that?
We have funding on that comes from the city and from the school. The school puts in, I believe it's $175,000, and we are putting in about $700,000.
Remember earlier we talked about anything being in jeopardy. That's not that fund.
No, that's general fund money and school district funding, and that's, unless council were to make a decision not to let the contract.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What's next?
Item 6B, 2 monthly activity reports at A, Park Services.
Is that the report?
No. We're used to PowerPoints with music and all kinds of things.
Exactly. Did you want to give us a brief report? Just a summary of anything you think we should know?
President Khan, maybe I could give the CIP report and give
That would be great.
my colleague a chance to crib some notes. He is pinch hitting for his boss on short notice.
Sure.
Okay.
That's item 2C, CIP projects.
Let's see. President Khan, members of the Commission, I want to give you a brief overview of two major projects that are underway. Have a very brief PowerPoint for you, but the visuals do tend to tell this story a lot clearer than perhaps I can. So the first slide shows you the front entry to the Dukmasian Wilderness Park barn, a Lemesnage barn. And as you can see, the archways are open now. Those are the entryways. There's one on each side. So we've removed the barriers that were there, and we'll be removing that black steel beam you see about mid-screen, and you'll see in the next slide, or in a future slide. This is the inside of the barn, two-story structure. You see the second floor was removed at some point, and I'm not quite sure when, but this used to be the home for the Lemesnage family. And so they lived on the second floor, and then on the first floor they had their winemaking implements as well as other farm tools and supplies and things of that nature. So we've opened up some of these windows, and we're in the process of doing a seismic retrofit to the building itself. Let's see. So we start removing some of the old slab and taking out some of the infill concrete in the windows and the doorways that's unreinforced. And then we begin this, I think I've described it to you before, much like putting a lid on a cardboard box. It creates strength, creates a sense of like a diaphragm. A cardboard box without a lid you can wobble it on all its sides. Once you put the lid on, then the box becomes more sturdy and it moves as a single structure. So here we have the footings for the buttresses that will run up the sides of the walls. You can see they are about 12 feet long, 5 feet wide, and about 6 feet deep. And then they're standing over that hole we were just looking at, and they're drilling into the wall where they will epoxy in dowels that will then be the attachment points for the steel cages that will go up. And here are some of the steel cages. You can see how large they are. The big boxy ones go in the hole. The long rectangular ones go up the sides of the wall. And you can see here the steel has been placed, and now they're placing concrete to encase the steel. And then when all of that was completed, we ended up with what you see here. Around each archway, we have a buttress on either side. So we have 4 archways, one on each frontage of the building. So a buttress on either side, total of 8 buttresses, anchored in the ground with those large footings. Then at the ceiling height of the first floor is a bond beam that replaces that black steel beam that we saw earlier. And that concrete bond beam is quite large, goes all the way around the building, and then we go up another level, place a second bond beam in, and then tie the roof structure into that bond beam. You see here we are at the second floor level. Looking down, you can see how large that bond beam is. It's unusual to see these fireplaces floating almost in the air, but that was part of the second floor. And you'll recall this structure was built in 1914 through 1918, and so the heating was done with wood and with coal in this area. So these were the sources of heat. These were hardy people that lived up at the Wilderness Park when it really was a wilderness. So that's the barn. We are on schedule. We will finish the seismic retrofit along with the sprinkler system end of March. So we're on schedule to finish on time. Then the second project we wanted to look at was the Pacific Park Pool. We oftentimes refer to that large concrete plaza that was so unpleasant during the summer months. This is a view of that plaza before construction. And then here it is while we're in process. So you're looking north in both views, and you can see most of that plaza is now gone. And that's where the pool and the pool building goes. The pool building is going up now. This project is really on a tight schedule and rolling fast. So that block building you're looking at is the pool building that will house staff and will also house the locker room, showers, maintenance facilities, and that in the foreground is the underground utilities and footings for the shade structures and things of that nature. You get a little better view of it here where you see the excavation for the pools begun, some of the infrastructure that's gone in, the color of the block building. That's a glazing that's burnt right into the block itself, so that is the actual color. And then here you can see from the on-site camera looking down another photo of the excavation that was going on. And then here's the shallow end of the pool, rough graded. That was about 7-8 days ago. And there's the deep end of the pool, rough graded. They've been, they had to put in the underground drains and that in the pool portion itself. That's in, it's been covered, and now they're placing steel. And once the steel's been placed, then they'll begin the process of gunite and concreting in the pool. So that's the update on Pacific Park Pool, on schedule, within budget, and the same is true for Griffith Manor Park, which we're not looking at today. Maple Park is about 85% complete and on schedule to be done about March 31st. Griffith Manor will be done in April. The pool will be done in June. There's one more. Griffith Manor. We have the Adult Recreation Center park portion that we hope to begin next month. And that we would hope to complete by June and have it ready for summer, as well as the pool ready for summer. So between now and July 1st, we'll be opening a lot of facilities. I can answer any questions you may have.
Just real quick, as far as the barn is concerned, is there, when there might be an appropriate time, can you arrange for those of us that are interested to go up there and have a tour?
Just thinking about it.
We absolutely can arrange that tour at your convenience. You can come as a group or as individuals. We'd be happy to host a tour for you and show you the progress that's going on, and then we can also review with you what the plans are for actually completing the facility. The seismic retrofit will not complete it. We still need to find funding for the flooring, the bathrooms, the electrical systems, and then the tenant improvements that would make it into a nature center. So we're looking somewhere in the neighborhood of another $2 million worth of improvements.
It was just really valuable when we, as individually, we went out to the ARC. I think for this project it would be equally as valuable.
We have staff on site every day, so you don't need an appointment. You can simply show up and we'll give you a tour. Or if you'd like to arrange for us to give you a tour and review things with you, we'd be happy to do that as well.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks for all your hard work.
Sure, thank you.
We'll go back to item 6B2A, Park Services Monthly Activity Report.
Mr. President, members of Commission, during the month of December, Park Services completed 94 work orders, and they spent a lot of time, the staff spent a lot of time cleaning up for the wind and rain damage. And after the rain, you get a lot of weeds, so they also spend a lot of time spraying and removing all the weeds. Couple major projects that we done in December is over at Adam Mini Park, we painted the garage building, so just in time for the delegate to visit in February. And also in Casa Adobe, we installed the luminaries for the holiday, and so I heard it was very successful and people really enjoyed it. One major project is ongoing, that is for the tree planting at the show ball field, at the slope in front of the show ball field. We already installed the drip system, it's ready to go. Right now it's waiting for Public Works to plant a tree. So I have questions.
Very nice presentation. Thank you. What's next?
Yes, item 6B2B, Recreation and Community Services.
President Kahn, members of the Commission. The Recreation section, the Customer Service Office, during the month of December, generated $12,555 in revenue. This is our slow time of the year, where because of the weather and holiday activities, the parks are not used as much as obviously during the summer. However, the amount of revenue in the different parks is pretty much the same as far as the amount. Verdugo Park is the number one revenue producer. Brand Park is second. The Glen Oaks Community Building, referred to as Joe Bridges Clubhouse, is the third. Casa Adobe is 4, and Dunsmore Community Building is 5. The Joe Bridges Community Center, Joe Bridges Clubhouse at Glen Oaks Park, they're just finishing the installation of central air conditioning and heating over there. And that is going to help immensely with the rentals, particularly during the summer. The building in the past has been, at best, usable during the real hot months. The Civic Auditorium has generated $29,000, $29,952 during the month of January, and a total of $228,000 so far this year. That's a little less than the previous year. The challenge at the Civic Auditorium is to, with this economy, to maintain our present customers and add new customers. We just booked a big sports card show, memorabilia show, which we've never had before. Continuing to try to drum up new business, and I'm happy to say that the building is in great physical shape. Granted, it's not a banquet hall; it's not as attractive as some places, but it is a very fine facility that is really ready to do anything that the community asks it to do. In addition, we have some new classes that are now available: cooking, gymnastics, yoga, and bicycle skills for kids. Coming up are the spring day camps, family nights, and please don't forget the St. Patrick's Day activities coming up in March. I mentioned that because the next meeting is after St. Patrick's Day. And, of course, Winter Wonderland is this Saturday at Brand Park. It begins at 10 o'clock, and it's always a great event. That is a true family event.
Thank you. Questions?
Well, just two comments, actually. One, yes, the Civic is not a banquet facility in the normal sense, but we saw a couple of years ago with the 100th anniversary some well-placed decorations and other amenities that can be put into the room that made it still an event that the people that I talk to still talk about. And then for a future meeting, I think that it would be interesting to have a longer report, not so much about the revenue or things like that, but, okay, we rented out Joe Bridges' clubhouse or Dunsmore Community Center, community room. That's great, but I think it would be good for us and people that watch these meetings to know what facilities are actually, or what amenities are available at these facilities.
Oh, okay.
So that, you know, when we're talking to people and they're looking for a place to have a meeting, you know, we'll have some information about what services and what amenities are at these facilities.
That's a great idea, because I will tell you, not only the Civic Auditorium, but the community buildings, they have at least small kitchens that people can use. The new Griffith Park, Griffith Manor renovation, the building over there, they're going to have a small kitchenette in there. We have the tables and chairs. I mean, yes, we will definitely do that.
Great.
I suggest, if it's not on the website, I was looking, that's where I would look on the website to see what they had, so I would make sure they're on the website.
Okay, I think some of them are, but not all of them, and I will definitely make sure that happens.
Thank you. Any other comments before we adjourn? I know that we go back to our regular meeting schedule next month.
The third Monday of every month, so it'll be March 21st.
So much easier to remember. Anyway, so having said that, then we will go into adjournment. Thank you.